Hello, everyone, and welcome to tonight's school committee meeting. We have some guests from Shaker Lane. Could I ask Brennan and Zoe to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
Say it loud.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Awesome, thanks, guys. All right, we have a consent agenda, the minutes from February 6, 2020, and both the bills and payroll.
Make a motion to accept the consent agenda as read.
Motion made and seconded. Is there any discussion on the consent agenda? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? None. All right, we have two sections in our meetings for input from interested citizens, one now and one towards the end of the meeting. If there are any interested citizens who would like to speak before the school committee? Seeing none, we'll jump into recognition. We have our student representative report. Maddie O'Meara is here tonight.
Hello. All right, so we got a lot from the high school. So tomorrow we're going to have an a cappella group perform at our school tomorrow, show us their talent, so that should be really cool. Parent-teacher conferences are next Wednesday, and Spirit Week is also next week. So if you want to stop by, show your tiger pride, it'd be really cool. Penny Wars is also raising money throughout next week for the American Cancer Society to fight leukemia and lymphoma research, and the annual college fair is March 18th in the gym, if anyone wants to stop by. And the junior class auction is March 19th in the cafeteria. At the middle school, high school faculty visited the 8th graders today to get them ready for the high school life. And the movie night at Littleton Middle School was tonight. At Russell Street, they're having regular weekly visits from the therapy dogs, Hero and Fezzik. And many of the classes have scheduled visits, and students have been able to spend individual time with all the dogs. And bingo night is also next week, and the family STEM night is at the end of the month. At Shaker Lane, there was Dr. Seuss's birthday, and they had a week full of fun spirit days that focused on several of the books. And today, the first graders had the opportunity to participate in the Portal to the World project, and they virtually met with a Honduran animal expert and compared animals from our community to their region, and the students and staff found this experience to be highly engaging, informative, and fun. That's it.
All right, thank you. Excellent. We have a Shaker Lane World Peace Song, MP4. Are we going to play that?
Mm-hmm.
We are. Any context?
Can we talk about it?
Yes, that would be wonderful.
Well, I think it's very ironic that the person who headed this project is actually here with us tonight. So I don't want to steal Ms. Brzezinski's thunder, but I can start, and she can maybe fill in if I'm missing anything. So Ann Brzezinski is our unified arts teacher, and she had approached me and said, I'm really interested in this project. And the theme behind this World Peace Song is that there is a melody and a tune that is brought to everybody across the world in every country. And the idea is to make lyrics about peace and to share this in whatever country you're in. So Anne had approached our transitional teacher, Miss Bumstead, and asked if they could work together. So this is their project. They are one of 2 schools in Massachusetts to do this project. Some of the youngest little ones that have participated in this project. And am I missing anything?
That's pretty much it, yeah. It was I don't know if it come up. So students from all over the world are singing the song in their language, and what we did was we brainstormed, what does peace mean to us? And so I asked
these children, what does peace mean to you? And we spent probably about 15 minutes brainstorming ideas. And they would say things like hope, and we're friends, and peace means to love. And one little boy was looking at the banner I had above the chalkboard in the music room, and he said, Mrs. Brzezinski, what does that say? And I said, that says welcome. And he said, peace means welcome here. And I said, yes, it does. So they came up with all of the words, and I just pieced them together into lyrics for the 4 different melodies. And then the 5th melody, everyone sings it in English from around the world. And so, but these lyrics that you'll hear now are their lyrics, and the melodies are sung in native languages all over the world. So everyone made up their own lyrics to the song. So there, that's about it.
Welcome here, from far and near. Welcome here, with joy and cheer. Our community is our family. Welcome here.
John Lennon would have loved it. Thank you. All right. Under recognition, we have a Finance Committee term expiration. We have a term, we have 2 appointees to the Finance Committee on behalf of the school committee. One of our appointees is up. It is actually a vacant position. Steve Moore had held it. He resigned a few weeks ago. That appointment would have been up anyway. This is the normal cycle for appointing someone. We will post this sort of want ad, for lack of a better term, in a couple of area newspapers. The time frame for the term is a 3-year appointment starting in May of 2020 and will expire in May of 2023. They have till April 11th to apply for it. If we get more than one, well, if we get any, we will bring them in here to interview them, and then we'll decide on a vote who we want to choose. I would like to ask that, because newspapers, unfortunately, local newspapers are not the same effective mode of communication and notification that they used to be, that if any of us have any particular social media outlets that we think would be good for the community to see this at, to send that information to the superintendent and with contact info for that, whoever administers, whether it's a Facebook page or something along those lines. And Dr. Clenchey, we could send this out too via our various social media accounts that the school
Yes, we can.
district maintains. I think that would be a good idea.
Sure.
I don't think we'd be necessarily.
Also posted on the town website. also.
Yeah, we could do that too. So any ideas you have in that regard, I think will help us. I'll let people know that this is an opportunity to volunteer, for anybody who's so inclined. Any other questions or comments on that? All right. And are there any other recognition, Dr. Clenchey?
Sure. I'd like to congratulate our coaches and our students for a great winter sports season. It's pretty well come to a close. We have a few students still competing in individual events, but hard to believe that season is over, and we're looking forward to the next season. It's going to be just around the corner. I'd also like to mention our Portal to the World project this week. Our students have the unique opportunity to experience talking to people in different states and different countries, and it's just an incredible experience. When you're in the actual portal, you feel like they're sitting right across from you, and you're just having a conversation back and forth. And what a great way to help our students understand cultural diversity throughout our world. So we actually have a community evening planned for March 15th. If you can make some time to come out and visit the Portal Project and perhaps talk to somebody in another country, we'd encourage you to come out. It's at the middle school library. And we're one of the very few districts in Massachusetts that have partnered with Andover Public Schools, who was fortunate enough to secure the funding to actually organize a curator, and pretty well for the whole state of Massachusetts offers programs. And so we're hoping to bring the portal back next fall. This is just an opportunity to introduce our staff to the portal. They're going to have an opportunity to think of ways that they can enrich what they're doing in their classrooms. In the fall, it'll be back, and they'll have a second round and choose who they'd like to speak to and what part of the world they would like to find more about. So, very exciting project, and special thanks to our tech team and all the teachers that were involved in making this happen. And also for the Kimball Foundation, who gave us a generous donation to help pay for this experience.
All right, thank you. Next, we'll go into presentations. We have the Shaker Lane Kindness Rock Project.
Mrs. Temple, I think, wants
Just
to
a
say.
correction
Oh,
on the
sorry.
date, Dr. Punchy, it's the 12th.
Is it 12? Oh, my apologies. March 12th.
So I'm actually have the pleasure of introducing two of our talented teachers who put the Kindness Rock project together. Ms. Brzezinski, who was just talking about our World Peace Song, is the Unified Arts teacher, and Mrs. Hemis is filling in as our interim art teacher. And we did this rock project in conjunction with the Great Kindness Challenge Week, and kind of sparked the idea, brought it to them, and they just took off with it. So I'm just going to hand it over to them and let them share their awesomeness.
Thank you. So before we jump into what we did at Shaker Lane, I wanted to give you just a little bit of background on the Kindness Rock Project and how it started. Back in 2015, a woman by the name of Megan Murphy was walking along the rocky shoreline near her home in Cape Cod, and she was admiring some of the smooth rocks that she was finding under her feet, and she bent down and picked one up, and she wrote a message on it that said, "You got this." And then she left it on the beach and continued down the beach and was picking up other rocks and writing other inspirational and uplifting messages on them and just leaving them behind. And for about 2 miles of the beach, she was writing and dropping and writing and dropping. And she got home later that night, and a friend of hers called on the phone and said, "You're never going to believe this. I was walking along the beach. I had a really horrible day, and I found this rock that had this message on it that just changed my whole day." Not even knowing that Megan was probably the one that wrote the message. But in any way, that really inspired Megan to run with this project. She said, if I can inspire someone I know, I'm sure there are people I don't know that I can inspire by writing messages, uplifting messages on rocks. So she started making them more creative and painting them bright colors and writing lots of just uplifting messages. And needless to say, it went viral across the United States before long. In fact, people are putting their own spin and flair on it. I had a student who we did the project with come back from February vacation, and he ran into the art room and he said, "Mrs. Brzezinski, I can't wait to show you what I found on the beach in Florida." And there was a beautiful painted shell that he found that someone had decorated, and there was a nice kind of inspirational message on the inside of the shell. He said, "These are just like our rocks." And so people are kind of putting their own spin on it, but it has spread across the world from the UK to New Zealand to Australia and several other countries. And the one mission is just what that rock up there says. One message at just the right moment can change someone's entire day, outlook, or life. So that's a little background on the project. I'm going to turn it over to Kristen to tell you how we got started with it at Shaker Lane.
So in November, Michelle came to us and had told us that the leadership committee at our school had decided they wanted to participate in World Kindness Week in some way. So they started brainstorming, and one idea that they came up with was that we would create kindness rocks, because they've become very popular. And so Ann and I were on board and really excited to do this project. I've painted rocks with students before, and it's something they're always really excited about. So one early Saturday morning in January, we visited W.J. Graves in Littleton, because we knew we'd struggle to find that many rocks in the middle of the winter. So we visited W.J. Graves and counted out 600 rocks, and they asked us what we were doing with the rocks. And when we told them, they donated the rocks to our project, which is awesome. So we cleaned up the rocks, and we started preparing to launch this project at our school. So we introduced it to our students at a kickoff for World Kindness Week.
So we go to the next slide. So the project beginnings, the World Kindness, or the Kindness Rock Project was only a piece of a larger Great Kindness Challenge that kicked off globally the week of January 27th. And we started, as Michelle mentioned already, at a community meeting. We rolled it out with the other fun things that were happening that week. So each day, students and staff were encouraged to really focus on kindness. We were giving each other compliments. We were saying thank you a lot more maybe than usual. We were really sharing and spreading a lot of kindness within the walls of Shaker Lane. And part of that was when they came into the art room, we decided to make the kindness rocks. So anyway, we didn't just give them a rock and say paint this and write some fun message on it. We sat down and we really brainstormed, what does it mean to be kind? Why should we share kindness? And do you think you can be kind to someone even if you don't know them? And so we made all of these posters with all of their ideas, and we posted them around the art room to give them some ideas of what they might want to put on their rock, what message they might want to put on their rock. So we can go to the next slide. And without getting too much into the weeds, we basically gave them a rock and a package to keep it in. We painted the rocks, let them dry on the windowsill, and while they were drying, we gave them a choice of whatever color they wanted to paint it, one solid color. And then while they were drying, we gave them, and this is kind of an important piece of the project, we gave them a little paper rock that they could begin their design with and really think about what they wanted to put on it. If you don't like that idea, you can try another rock, and you can try another rock. So this was part of a planning process that they did, which is kind of a really neat thing for that age group. So once you can go to the next slide. Once the rocks had dried and they finished their design on their paper rock, we talked about how to transfer it, a two-dimensional thing to a three-dimensional thing. So we had lots of fancy math language in there. But they had to just do it very carefully, and they did it really, this one's mine, but you should see the ones they did, they're way better. And then afterwards, after everything was dry, we put a #ShakyPride label on the back of each rock. And we're hoping that someone will notice that as social media language, and if a lucky recipient comes across one of these rocks around the community, then they may tweet about it, and we can follow the kindness thread throughout wherever the rocks go. And then the final step in the process happened this week, where Kristen and I sprayed a protective seal on each rock to give it a nice finish and protect it from the elements when it's left outside. So if you want to go to the next slide, we're almost done. These are just some pictures of some of my students at work. And you can see that they're using their paper rock as kind of a guide to what they're putting on their painted rock. Some students decided just to put pictures. You can see the little minion down there at the bottom. Some put a combination of words and pictures, and others just put words. So they did a fantastic job. I think they really got a lot out of the experience. I know Kristen and I did. And I'm going to let Kristen finish up the presentation.
I just wanted to share this joyful moment. These are from kindergarten, and these are some of the rocks they created. And in kindergarten, as part of classroom management, we have these little pom-pom quiet critters. Each one of them has one at their table when they're creating art every day. And at the end of the project, the kids were really excited to share their message. And there was a little girl who shouted out, "Can we teach our quiet critters how to be kind?" And so we pulled out the quiet critters, and they sat them down, and they were each sharing their message. I wish I would have videotaped it, because there was a lot of wisdom coming from our kindergartners and joy from seeing them have the opportunity to share kindness with the quiet critters. Okay, so you can go ahead. These are just some more pictures. Another element of this project is we had a lot of surprises from the community being involved. Like I said, W.J. Graves graciously donated over 600 rocks to us. We also had a mother of one of our first graders. She collected 200 rocks for us, beautiful like river rocks. And about halfway into the project, we realized that we hadn't ordered quite enough art supplies to complete the project. So I made a trip to Walmart, loaded up on acrylic paints and plastic baggies and some other things that we needed. And when I was in line at Walmart, the lady behind me must have thought I was getting ready to have an art party or something. So she asked me what we were doing, and I said, I'm a teacher at Russell Street and Shaker Lane, but at Shaker Lane we're creating this kindness rock project, and she was so inspired by it that she said, "I want to pay for all the supplies." So she paid for it, and it just kind of went along with the whole feeling and idea of this project, A Stranger, creating this act of kindness that kind of encourages us to pay it forward. So I hope that you're all inspired by what our students are about to create within our community. And
So be looking for rocks. They're coming home tomorrow. So.
And when you leave tonight, look very carefully. You might find some.
So we are very lucky to have a couple of students who participated in the project join us tonight. So I would love to call Brennan and Zoe back up, and they'll tell you a little bit about their personal experience with the project. Come on up, guys. You want to go first, Zoe?
So we are making these kindness rocks, and we're gonna hopefully drop them off around our school or around anywhere. And I make these a lot because my dad, he's sometimes not home on weekends, and he normally gets home at like midnight. So I like making these for him.
So the first step of this project is to pick a rock. After you pick a rock, you get to choose a color from the rainbow to paint it, but you only get one color. So you can make it look like two colors because at the end you use a paint marker, and you can do a design on it to make it look like you use more than one colors of paint. And then you have to sketch it out on your paper rock first, so you know what you're doing and you can look at it and concentrate so you know what design you're doing.
Cool. Excellent. So, wow.
Brennan and Zoe, I have one thing I'd like to make sure we all understand, okay? The operative verb you guys used was you're gonna drop the rocks. So you're gonna drop them, right? No, tell nobody they can throw them. All right, that's good.
Brennan's a little modest. I just want to give him a little shout out. The weekend we started this project, I can't remember if we had actually started it in the classrooms yet. Had we started it in the classroom? And then he went home over the weekend and he made kindness rocks himself over the weekend and passed them out. So he's a little humble, but that was a really great act of kindness, buddy. I'm so proud of you. And Zoe, great job presenting. It was a great. It's just great to be part of this project. So.
Great project.
Thank you, guys.
And Brendan and Zoe, I am so proud of you, the way you presented this evening. You just came right up to that mic and talked to us. That was just awesome.
Thank you. All right, moving along, we have a presentation on a Kimball grant for the high school library.
Tough act to follow. Again. Zoe and Brendan, great job, you two. My name is Paul Orzik. I'm the library media specialist at Littleton High School. This is my first year in the district, but even before coming here, I'd heard a lot about the Kimball grant, and I was very excited to have the opportunity to work with the funds and help really implement a plan moving forward for the library. So when I found out I had $20,000 to spend, it was obviously very important to spend that the right way, so it was important to talk to a lot of not only faculty, but also students and parents as well. So when I was compiling a list of things to purchase, my overarching goal was kind of derived from the mission statement and philosophy of the library, which is up on the board right there, which is basically through the Kimball Grant, the LHS library strives to create a unique and safe environment that's conducive to providing students and faculty with the resources and service necessary not only to support and enhance the curriculum, but to inspire creativity, intellectual curiosity, and the passion to become lifelong learners. So, I mean, pretty much distilling it down, the point of this grant was basically to prepare our students for the future and make them better students after they graduate high school. So to maximize the Kimball Grant, first I had to identify areas in need of improvement within the library. And in speaking to, again, students, faculty, and parents, there were 3 areas that we felt needed improvement. The first was the physical space and environment. So by that I mean the furniture, a place to display books to promote independent reading was very important as well. And kind of just to open up the flow a little bit more, make it more conducive to collaborative work. Second was technology upgrades. So this is where we looked at interactive TVs, which I'll get into in a bit, as well as I know green screen and video recording is pretty big at the high school. That was something that was new for me here, so I was wondering exactly how that worked, and through my experiences the first semester I was able to identify areas where improvements could be made. And then lastly, we decided to focus on SEL supports. In this district I've noticed there is a heavy emphasis on SEL among parents and students in particular, and so I wanted to definitely devote part of the grant to addressing that topic. So the first point there I mentioned is the physical space and environment. One of the first things students and faculty came to me and said that they wanted to see was some comfortable seating in the library. Reason for that is to get more engaged in independent reading, to kind of get lost in their work. This is something that we see as a common trend in both university libraries and public libraries. I was in a school before where we redesigned our library and included a lot of comfy furniture. I learned things that were good about that and things that were bad about that I was able to take into this. For example, we're only having chairs. Couches did not work out well in a high school setting, so we definitely wanted to avoid that. We also wanted to have more area for peer tutoring and other collaborative spaces. a thing that was very important too was having furniture and pieces that were mobile and could be easily moved around too. The important thing is that, you know, libraries are changing, times are changing. They're not necessarily the quiet place that we grew all up in. People are encouraged to interact and collaborate, and it can be some loud sometimes. It's trying to find that balance between social and academic. So hopefully those physical changes can facilitate that. On the next slide here, this is kind of an in-depth look at where exactly new things are going to go. I can get into this in greater detail later if you have questions. I will be addressing these areas a little later on in the presentation. Basically, the red items you see there are going to be new purchases. So the second component that I wanted to address with the grant was technology upgrades. Again, our students are very technologically savvy. As they move forward, they're going to be using technology more and more in their lives. We wanted to prepare them for what to expect once they leave high school, not only in college, but also in the workforce. Part of this was trying to get tools that would be useful to them, not necessarily just gimmicks or things that are trendy at the moment. So again, we also looked at trends in high schools, colleges, and local businesses. So the big thing that we ended up purchasing this year are clear touch interactive TVs. What's important about these to note is that they are replacing smart boards. They're often used in colleges and in a lot of businesses. They have a lot of really unique presentation software that's compatible with the existing apps and Google Suite that we already use with our students. What's nice is if you look up on that screen right there, you can really break down the screen into different segments to allow video conferencing. Students can connect with whatever device they have, be it a phone, their Chromebook. Some students have iPads. And like I said, it really allows people to really come together and work in a really innovative way. They're also mobile, which is nice, so students can bring them to different classrooms. They can use them for presentations that occur at the high school. These should be arriving pretty shortly at the school, and when that happens, we'll be having a lot of professional development and training that revolves around using the TVs. There's already been some teacher interest, so that's something that we're very excited about implementing. As I mentioned before, green screens is something that's used a lot at the high school that I've really got to dive into and learn a lot about, which is pretty exciting. There were a lot of upgrades that we had to make with equipment here in terms of just how to record better, how to get better sound. Some of the equipment just from wear and tear was starting to fall apart. So I made that a priority of the grant to update this technology and kind of, again, make everything a little bit better. The last component of the technology section was to get some equipment to help improve both the yearbook club, and there's going to be a yearbook class next year. So to help make this class a little bit more interesting and kind of take it into 21st century a bit more, is we wanted to get a drone to cover sport events, and not only sport events, but other events as well. What's nice about this is there's also the opportunity for collaborative opportunities with other classes as well. So this is something that just came in last week, and we're really just starting to play with now, but we have a lot of high hopes for how we can integrate this into the curriculum. Lastly, as I mentioned, there's a strong emphasis on student well-being here at Littleton High School. This is to be expected in a school where there's such high performance, there's a lot of stress. This was noted to me by students and parents as well. So in speaking to colleagues, we tried to see how can we best help our students out. How can we help them de-stress? What kind of creative ways can we help improve their overall well-being? And again, we looked at trends that were existing in high schools, colleges, and high-stress business environments. This is where we're starting to get really innovative, and some of the ideas are really exciting to students. So one of the first things we're going to be looking at are getting bicycle desks in the library. We have a very big open window that overlooks the entrance to the school. So we are purchasing 3 bicycle desks to put there. These are nice because they've been kind of proven stress reducers. This has been a trend that's just kind of started to explode within the last 5 years or so. Started off in California schools. Texas A&M studied the use of these bicycle desks in 2017. Around the time of midterms and finals, they implemented, I think they bought 5 or 6 of these desks, put them in the library, and would just conduct interviews with students who use them. Found that they were able to reduce stress, not worry as much, kind of feel better about themselves during exam time. What's nice is the desk should actually be arriving right around the timing of our first MCAS exams. So this will prove an interesting trial period right there. We're going to try and promote them, see if we can get students to use them around that time to de-stress a bit. Then lastly, we're going to be getting some Oculus Rift with the purpose of providing sort of immersive meditation for students. This is something that's really just been exploding over the last couple of years. We've seen it used in a lot of high business environments, high stress business environments, where people may not feel like they can take a vacation. So a lot of these businesses have been bringing in the Oculus Rift to provide mini vacations that their employees can take during the day. Like I said, it's kind of a totally immersive meditation. They can go in an interactive environment, relaxing music, again, just kind of de-stress. Bonds University in Australia in 2019 conducted the first study on the effectiveness of using this sort of tool. Again, it was done during finals in the college, and it was found overwhelmingly that students who chose to do this form of de-stress around exam times did much better, and again, had much better sense of well-being. Colorado University just started a pilot program in March of last year. They're using this both with their counseling services as well as in the library. And UCLA's Anxiety and Depression Research Center is just starting a research study on it right now. At the high school right now, we do have something that's Google Expedition, which is a different form of virtual reality headsets. What differs between the Oculus Rift and the Google Expedition VR headsets is the Google Expedition, it needs to be teacher-led. So without a teacher leading the expedition, students aren't able to take advantage of the headset. The difference is with the Oculus Rift, students are able to do this on their own. There will be some training that will be required. We'll have to look into some sort of policy being written, but the idea is that students can take the action themselves and be reliant to better themselves as they see necessary. This will hopefully be ready ideally around finals of this year. And what's next? Basically, as I said, stuff is starting to come in now. We're starting to open the boxes and generate some interest among both students and faculty. There will be some training and brainstorming that's going to be coming as we start opening up things and playing with them. And of course, we'll have to start writing some policies because some of this stuff is expensive and we want to make sure that we're using it appropriately. And then, like I said, we're going to start experimenting with students and teachers and really having them take risks, and we'll see what happens with that. Are there any questions that I can answer? Thanks for seeing me.
Pretty excited about it. Thank you, Paul. Just express my gratitude for Paul. We just hired him recently, and he's been a wonderful addition to the high school community. He's an incredible collaborator with faculty, and he's really taken on the legacy of the Kimball Grant that's now in it's a multi-year effort. It was a very thoughtful approach by everybody who was involved as part of the team prior to Paul, and Paul has carried it forward to a whole other level. So we'll be updating the Kimball Grant trustees at some point about this as well in person. But we're very appreciative to the Kimball Fund for sponsoring this and supporting all kinds of wonderful academic and social emotional learning initiatives at the high school. It truly has, there were some key buzzwords we talked about when we proposed the grant. One was innovation, the other was collaboration, and you can see the fruition of that tonight.
It's definitely been a multi-year project, and we've been witness to the changes from year to year, and it's really nice to see the next phase being implemented. So again, special thanks to the Kimball Fund for helping make this possible, and it really has transformed our library into a learning center for our students. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Thank you. Next, we have a financial update from Steve Mark.
So the slide is in the packet. It's year-to-date through February. No surprises here. We've been pretty steady all year, so we don't foresee any big issues at this point in time. We're in good shape. Again, the encumbrances are high because we're encumbering as we move out, and so we can track some of the expenses make sure we get all those invoices at the end of the year. That's why that encumbrance column is so high. But again, there's no surprises here. We're in good shape. I'd be glad to answer questions.
Questions? All right. Thank you. So we have an update on the development of the district's Student Opportunity Act strategic plan.
Good evening. I'm happy to present to the committee a brief update with regard to the Student Opportunity Plan that we're currently working on. So this plan stems from the Student Opportunity Act that was signed into law last November. Part of the act provides an infusion of funds to public schools through Chapter 78. And so these funds are given to public schools, and then they're monitored by the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education by means of the plan that is submitted by the district. And so, as you may recall from previous presentations, these plans need to address how we as a district are working to close achievement gaps. So we've thought a lot about how we would like to approach using these funds, which I will remind you is not a large amount of money at this point in time, and in which area we would like to place focus for those funds. So after examining our data and referencing guidance provided by DESE, we are drafting a plan that will enhance core instruction and increase targeted student supports. In doing this, we plan to review our current elementary math curriculum, as well as our Tier 1 and Tier 2 supports in elementary math. So this review of elementary math curriculum will help us to assess our curricular landscape and decide whether an adoption and implementation of an updated, high-quality, aligned resource is required. At this point, we would like our plan to focus on elementary math, not because we see this as an area of deficit, but rather we see it as an area of opportunity and growth. So as per requirements set forth in the Student Opportunity Act, we are to gather stakeholder input about our plan. This week, Principal Cheryl Temple and I were able to meet with the PTA at Russell Street School to begin the process of gathering that stakeholder input. Next week, the school councils at both Shaker Lane and Russell Street will meet to gather input for the plan. At Shaker Lane, that meeting will be on Tuesday at 3:45, and at Russell Street, that meeting will also take place on Tuesday, but at 2:45. Those are open meetings that anyone can attend in order to provide input for the Student Opportunity Plan. So thank you for the opportunity to provide this update this evening. Next time we gather, we should have a completed plan ready for your vote.
And just a reminder to everybody, that plan is going to have to be presented at our next meeting after our budget hearing so that we can meet the April 1st deadline.
Okay. Questions, or we just all set to wait for the final plan? All right, thank you.
Exciting.
Dr. Clenchey, an update on the one-to-one Chromebook program at the middle school?
Yes, last week we deployed the one-on-one program to the middle school. I have to say it was a seamless deployment. Within 2 days, it just felt like our students had a computer in their hands way before, 2 days before that. What we've done, though, is as a district, we've taken some time to assess where we're at in terms of technology integration within all 4 of our schools. We've been in servicing our leadership team on something called disruptive technology. And it's a strategy that uses the phrase disruptive technology integration. But the whole purpose of this program is to self-identify where you are in terms of the use of technology in your schools, and look at ways that you can enhance technology for meaningful learning. And meaningful learning is part of meaningful learning is employing what we call student agency, or having students be more in control of their own learning. If they're interested in an area, giving them the skills to explore further, etc. So we're really excited about this, and this will allow us to plot some baseline data, and we can track how we're moving forward using this model that we've presented. We're using train the trainer as an approach, and our principals have already started training their staff so that they can identify the various levels that they're at in terms of strategies that they're using in their classroom. Just a reminder to everybody, a one-on-one laptop program does not mean that we use laptops every single second of the school day. They are used when there are meaningful opportunities to enhance learning experiences of our students. So very excited about this program, and thanks to the school committee for helping make this happen this year.
All right, we now have under new business, we're going to talk about the Shaker Lane Statement of Interest. This is regarding the very first initial, I'd almost call them baby steps in the potential renovation or rebuild of Shaker Lane. The goal here is to start the process with the School Building Association
Authority.
MSBA, Mass School Building Authority, which is a government agency that provides reimbursement for school building and renovation projects. We went through this process when we redid Russell Street. That was the most recent one we did. It is an extensive, extended, iterative process to go through their bureaucratic steps to qualify for reimbursement, but it is entirely worthwhile, because if you do qualify, it can be up to close to 50% potentially.
It depends on the finances of the town and lots of different
a lot of factors, but it can possibly be a very significant rate of reimbursement for a project like this. So we're talking about millions of dollars potentially paid for by the state instead of by the taxpayers of Littleton. So it's a very worthwhile process, even though it is a fair amount of hoops and a bunch of time to jump through and to get through. But Steve's going to give us an update on this very beginning of the process.
Right, so as the chairman pointed out, this is a beginning stage to let the MSBA know that, hey, Littleton is out here, we're interested in working with the MSBA on a potential school building project, whether that's a replacement building, a renovation, some combination, an addition, something like that. That's not determined here in this stage. What the statement of interest does is you fill out a series of questionnaire, you provide certain information about the school. The MSBA board reviews all of those statements that they receive from across the state, and then they invite a community back for additional study. So there's no guarantee that Littleton will be chosen the first year or the second year, or it all depends on how many projects they receive and how their board views the statement of interest as far as priorities within the district and priorities within what MSBA's funding is. MSBA a couple of years ago, was allotted, I believe it's 1 penny of the sales tax across Massachusetts to help fund their building programs. That piece of the state budget was just increased through the same act with the Student Opportunities Act, so they're getting more funding every year. So hopefully that might ramp up how fast they look at some of these projects. So what I provided in the packet here, I broke it up into 2 sections. The first section is just a lot of information. I won't go through every page about the process, about the different programs that they offer. MSBA offers a core program. They offer an accelerated program. We don't qualify for the accelerated program because of the age of the school, the age of the roof and the windows and the boiler. They have to be more than 30 years old. So there's a lot of information here. Again, I won't go through it. The deadline to submit this statement of interest is Wednesday, April 8th. And as part of that, we have to take a formal school committee vote. We also have to present this and take a formal Board of Selectmen vote. We're presenting that to the Board of Selectmen on March 9th, which is Monday. And then there's required language we have to vote on and things like that. So I'm just going to scroll through these really quick. This page that's on the screen, that again is in the packet, is the actual language that school committee needs to adopt tonight and vote. I won't go through it all. We have to get the signatures. I tried to put timelines in here. I tried to put some information. Again, there's the language in here for the Board of Selectmen as well and their vote as well. And then I included information on what the priorities are. You can see there's 8 priorities that we can choose from in this statement. We only qualify for priorities 5 and 7. You can read what the description is here. And then once we have the votes, we have to send in hard copies of the votes and do some paperwork. And then I included some information on the 2 programs, the core program and the accelerated program. Again, it's just for information so people can read it, so they can understand. All this information is out on the MSB website as well. So the actual statement of interest, again, we have to go through, and we worked with the Shaker Lane School Administration. They were very helpful. We worked with an architect firm and a mechanical engineering firm. They came in and did some site evaluations and some inspections of our mechanical systems and provided some of the language and some of the guidance here. They have experience doing these. We have to, there's a series of questions we have to answer. We have to provide building history, site description, just information about the building itself. What are the systems like? How old are they? How old is the buildings? What was interesting to me when I did this is I had always assumed that the building was built in 1964. I found out that the original building was 1959, and then there was a small addition in 62, which was the additional classrooms on the north end of the building, and then we did the big renovation in '98 where we added the library, the front office, the cafeteria, and the kindergarten wings. That was in 1998. So that was interesting to find. It was actually a little older than I had originally thought of. We had to give information about the roof, the mechanicals. Again, so it's in here. I won't go through it all. It's I think it's interesting reading. If you want to read it, have fun. But and then we had to give some information about some of the program deficiencies, the educational program deficiencies, and what areas that we think we'd like to change, that we need help changing the building to better that program. Again, that's in here as well. So I'm glad to answer questions on it. Again, I don't think you want me to go through every page and every description here, but it's not designed to be a total explanation of what every single problem might be at the Shaker Lane School. It's designed to get the core deficiencies of the program identified to MSBA. Once MSBA receives these, they actually have reviewers that read every single one of them, and then if we get invited back for the next step, then MSBA sends a team out to the school to do additional evaluation, and then we would do feasibility studies and determine what's the next step. Is it a new building? Is it a renovation? Is it an addition renovation? Whatever that step is, this SOI does not make that recommendation. The SOI is just designed to get MSBA's attention and say, hey, we're here, we want to do something. So that's what the SOI is about. Be glad to answer questions.
When will you be asking for a school committee vote?
Tonight.
Tonight.
Yes.
Yes. Yep, because it goes to Board of Selectmen on Monday night, and then after that, I send out, I have to finalize it online, and then the 3 signatories, which is the chairman of the Board of Selectmen or the chief executive officer of the town, the chairman of the school committee and the superintendent all have to electronically sign off, and then I need manual signatures as well, because I have to send in those manual signatures as well. And again, this all needs to be done and submitted before April 8th. So the language for school committee is in the packet. It's, let me pull it up on the screen again. Sorry about that.
It's page 36 of the packet.
Page 3 of the little handout that he had made there. So.
Any questions or comments before we entertain a motion?
No, I must add, I read through the thing. Nice job putting that all together.
Thank you. And again, it was a lot of work. I thank Michelle and her staff. They spent a lot of time with us talking about issues with the architect, and yeah, thank you.
require any further discussion, we will entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion, and I guess, rather than reading the one-page recommended thing, I just commit to the record what's on the
Yep.
screen there.
Yep.
And that we take a vote to submit the statement of interest for the text.
Second.
All right, motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
And I plan on being there on Monday at the Board of Selectmen. They know it's coming. They've been praised to that, so hopefully it'll be as
Yeah, and I-
pro-forma as it was here tonight.
And the town administrator already has this presentation, so we should be all set.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
Great
next-
news.
Sorry, good, Dr. Fauci?
Great news that
Yeah.
we're at this stage of the process. Next on the agenda, the shared facility manager position between the town of Littleton and the school department. This isn't the first time we've had this discussion around this table. We've been working on a job description for the last 3 months, I believe, pretty close to 3 months, and we're very, very close to finalizing it. The job description's in your package. There's been input from myself, town administrator, PMBC, FinCom, Board of Selectmen, in behalf of the school committee, Darrell Baker and Mike Fontanella. And we've also tapped the resources of our maintenance personnel and our business manager, Steve Mark. So it's has gone through a few iterations, to say the least, and I feel personally very good about where we're at with this job description. You'll notice in the agenda that because this is a shared position in the state of Massachusetts, before you can share positions with a town municipality, you need to have a vote from the school committee, the Board of Selectmen in support of this, and also a vote at the town meeting. So what the intentions are at this point in time is to have the job description approved, and the tentative plan is to have everything followed through with interviews finalized and completed prior to the town meeting. So after the town meeting, if the vote goes through, we would hire this individual and bring him on board as soon as possible. Any questions about the process or about the job description? If there are no questions, then certainly entertain a motion.
Do you have language for a motion that you need?
It's
or-
right
sorry.
in the agenda. Sorry, Jeremy.
Yeah, it's on the agenda.
Make a motion to consolidate administrative functions for the position of facilities manager in accordance with Mass General Laws, C-71, 37M.
Oh, second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None.
Chairman Fontanella, if I could just maybe add one topic to the
Yep.
agenda, something that was unexpected in terms of communication. As all of you know, today I sent out a second communication in regard to COVID-19, also known as the coronavirus. The communication was basically an update in terms of CDC protocols adopted by the Mass Department of Public Health. Yesterday there was a press release by Governor Baker who reinforced virtually everything I've said in this letter. But it was important for our public to know that there are certain countries that have had elevated levels in terms of concern. Italy is one such country, and in the letter I also disclosed that we had some staff that took part in a trip to Italy during the February break. They've been excellent to work with. They've been monitored every day by our nurses. They've been self-monitoring. And with the changes in regulations that recommend now, as of yesterday, 14-day self-quarantine, I felt compelled to enforce this requirement. They are almost through the 14-day quarantine period. That quarantine period will be finished on March 7th. And anticipated date of return to work is March 9th, provided, as I've stated in this letter, that they are symptom-free. They have been symptom-free all along. And I also wanted to point out that they still consider the transmission of COVID-19 to be at a very low risk in the state of Massachusetts. We will continue to follow the protocols set forth by CDC and Department of Public Health. We work with our local health board as well, Neshoba Health Commission. And we have close contact with our fire department, police department, and town administrator. We've met with the nurses a couple of times and have reviewed our protocols for contagious illnesses. We've also mapped out various scenarios with our nurses in terms of protocols that we would use when identifying flus, and also the protocols that the nurses would use with the qualifications that they have to refer any patients that they have to the proper or appropriate healthcare professional. It's also important for everybody to know that this is, in fact, flu season. And there are many different strains of flu and cold viruses and strep throat, etc. As we do every year, we've upped our game, so to speak, a bit. We've increased our disinfectant protocols quite a bit. And we've always been vigilant in that area. So our areas that are used multiple times during the day or cleaned multiple times during the day, we sterilize door handles, railings, etc. In our cafeteria, every time somebody, grade comes in to eat, we sterilize the tables and sterilize them again before the next crew comes in, their group comes in. Just as an example, and nothing is exact, but we had a stomach flu virus go through one of our schools last week, and we had some absenteeism. And when I asked for the absenteeism of students and staff this week, there was hardly anybody absent. So I guess it's somewhat of a testimony that what we are implementing has been effective, and we will continue to do that as we move forward.
So to make one point of clarification, at the top of your remarks, you talked about some staff that had gone on a trip to Italy. It was totally social. It was their own trip.
Yes.
They took advantage of the fact that they weren't working over February break. It wasn't a school trip. There were no students on the trip. It was just like anybody that would take a vacation. They chose to go to Italy this time. But I appreciate the update. I appreciate the amount of communication that's been going both to the school committee and beyond us to the school communities, parents and the students and the families and the staff as well. I think that's a crucial point too. You talked about that. You guys have taken proactive steps to get the staff to reevaluate the protocols and to make sure that they're paying double attention to executing on those protocols. I think you're exactly right. We'll take our direction directly from the CDC and the Department of Health in Massachusetts. Obviously, this is something that is concerning to all levels of, it's not just school districts, it's businesses and other public. There's a lot of college students who travel abroad or do a semester abroad. There's a lot going on. A lot of programs are getting canceled, or kids are getting pulled back halfway through the program. So there's a lot of things that are going on. It's an evolving situation. You stressed the fact that we have upped our protocols, but we certainly aren't standing still. We'll continue to monitor the situation and see what transpires as we all move forward through this. So thank you. Any other questions or comments? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
We are at the second spot in the meeting for input from interested citizens. Anybody would like to speak before the school committee? Nope. We'll jump into subcommittee reports, PMBC.
Let's see. In general, things are just moving along. You know, there's a lot of focus on what to do with this building and the planning on the new library. One thing that I finished up for PMBC is I help them get set up for electronic filing in Office 365. They now have a OneDrive that's available for all of their files. I got them set up with an initial organization on that. Steve, I shared to you the directories that have the school projects in them, so that you can at least read them.
Yep, I saw that. Thank you.
And stuff too, so that we can try to get them moved, away from the paper process that they have currently.
Fantastic, I love it.
So that's all from.
Okay. All right. Budget Subcommittee. I sent to you guys earlier today and sent to Dorothy, so it'll get into the packet if it's not already in there, some slides to talk about tonight. So as we remember, back in November or December, the Budget Subcommittee presented an initial budget analysis. In it, we talked about the fact that to remain level serviced and staffed would require an increase of $549,000. We were also looking for some additional services and staffing of $254,000 to continue our phase-in of tuition-free full-day kindergarten. We were also looking to increase 3 teachers from 0.8 to 1.0, and we were interested in potentially hiring some part-time central office staff to work in HR and accounts payable. The total increases, along with the amount required to maintain level service and staffing, was originally $803,410. Subsequent to that, I presented that same information to the Budget Summit on Saturday here with the FinCom, the Board of Selectmen, where they also got presentations on the rest of the budget requests from other town departments. At that meeting, we were told that the total revenue and available funds was just under $58 million for the town, including the school department, but that the total expenditures initially requested was $58.1 million, and there was a variance of about $179,000. In addition, the governor's budget had come out, and the cherry sheets, as they call them, showed charter school charges to Littleton being $100,000 less than it had been in previous years. We, the town finance department and the school department, weren't quite sure how valid that number was. It's a preliminary budget from the governor. We still have to see the budget from the House of Representatives and the Senate at the state level. The town finance director had suggested that for budget modeling purposes that we take a conservative route and assume that that $100,000 wouldn't be available. So the adjusted variance when you take that conservative route was about $279,000 from the initial request for increases from the various town departments. Subsequently, the FinCom and the Board of Selectmen started evaluating all those requests for additional funding, and they made some suggestions for projected reductions to other town departments of close to $350,000. And they asked the school department to consider reducing our request by $75,000. That's a total of about $425,000, which is even more than the deficit that they had originally identified. In some conversations that I had with the chairman of the FinCom and the Board of Selectmen, they basically felt that the requests by the other town departments were a little aggressive in terms of what they were asking for versus what the FinCom and the Board of Selectmen felt was fiscally worthwhile. So they actually pumped the brakes on those requests and cut back farther than they needed to relative to the amount of revenue that is ostensibly available to fund operations. And what they decided to do with the excess was to put it in their various stabilization funds. Thank you. I always block at that word. With an eye towards, because we are taking on some projects potentially for debt funding, including the library and other things that would help us manage the payment of that debt. In talking with them and understanding what they were trying to do and talking to the superintendent and the business manager, we felt that we could absorb that reduction of $75,000 to our original request. And the next slide, if you go, if we do that, we will be able to fund the increase in level service and staffing of $549,000. And we can do another $179,000 in additional services and staffing, ostensibly to continue the phase-in of tuition-free full-day kindergarten. And instead of funding 3 teachers from 0.8 to 1.0, we can do about 1.5. And that increase, total increase would then be $728,410. And the idea would be that we would debate, and the whole goal of this discussion tonight, this update, is to prepare ourselves for 2 weeks from now at our next meeting is our scheduled public hearing on the budget when we have to make our decision about what we want to do. But one thing that I would be, and Matt and I talked about in the budget subcommittee meetings with Kelly and Steve, was that we could probably very easily tell them to go ahead and if they to finish the increase of the teachers from 0.8 to 1.0, about $25,000, and potentially do the part-time central office staff of $49,000, replace that $75,000 reduction through school choice and possibly any efficiencies they can find in the budget. I will throw one thing about HR. The town side is thinking about revamping how they do HR. And they would like us the school department, to be part of that discussion. So what we may very well do is say, okay, AP is separate from that discussion. If we feel like we need that help and we can afford it in school choice, we'll go ahead and fund that. But we'll hold off on the human resources till we get an idea of if there's any efficiencies we can get with the realignment and reorganization that the town is contemplating. So it may not be $75,000, it may be a little bit less than that as we think about the HR aspect of it. The school choice funds, this is the same numbers that we looked at back in November. Our estimated starting balance for FY 2021 is a little over $1.6 million. We know that we'll spend $250,000 of that on staffing salaries for staff, as we do each year. But even if you throw another, $75,000 in there, we're still going to be over $1.2 million available to us in school choice for unexpected expenditures during FY 2021. So the superintendent is good with the increase of $728,000. We think it'll work. It will definitely supported by the FinCom and the Board of Selectmen. So if we want to think about that, and as we get ready for our meeting in 2 weeks, I think we would have a pretty clear pathway to get where we need to be for FY 2021.
Yeah, I looked at this really quickly before attending tonight, and I sort of look at this as maybe just a quick informational piece prior to our thing there. And I guess looking at our balances, maybe I'd like the members to consider thinking about when we get the full presentation as to whether we want to fully fund that additional $75,000 to bring the staffing up to the superintendent's original recommendation there, and possibly consider the final installment in the tuition full-day kindergarten, so that we eliminate that fee next year, or in next year's budget. So consider taking an additional $75,000 out of school choice to.
So effectively making it a 4-year instead of a 5-year phase-in.
Right. Given that it looks like we'll have sufficient balance, and again, I didn't want to debate it tonight. I just wanted to maybe put it out there for people to consider, so that we can have a more robust discussion.
We can certainly, as we prepare the presentation for the public hearing, we can put that into the model,
right,
and see, what it looks like.
Yeah.
Here's if we stop here, here's how much we'd have left if we go another level forward,
right,
i.e. towards completing the phase-in of tuition-free full-day kindergarten. this is where we'd be, and then we can figure out how comfortable we are with that.
That's just based on this quick look, that it looks like our school choice balance is creeping up a little higher than we had originally projected 2 years ago when we did that plan. This might be an opportunity for us to revisit that.
Okay, we can fit that into the analysis.
I appreciate that.
All right. Any other comments or questions? All right. I will say that our increase of $728,000 is significantly less, like by 30 to 40% over previous years. And we've all talked about the fact that the level funding of out-of-district special education tuition is probably the biggest reason for that being significantly lower than it has been. The Finance Committee and the Board of Selectmen recognized that that was an opportunity for them to maybe get some things done on the town side that we haven't necessarily been able to do the past several years because of the increases in the school budget. They are also quite aware that that is entirely probably an aberration, that we certainly can't count on that next year we could easily be right back to, over $1 million increase depending on different factors. So, I appreciate the fact that they were able to do some things. It'll be interesting to see when we get the final numbers on the overall budget, what the percentage and dollar increases are on the town side compared to the school side and how that compares historically. I think that on a percentage basis, I think that the town side is going to be significantly higher than it has been relative to the school increase. And that probably isn't sustainable over time, but that's okay. But I do appreciate the fact it could have been even higher, but that the FinCom was taking a pretty conservative approach to funding of operations relative to the amount of revenue that was available, and using those stabilization funds to kind of pump the brakes on the growth in operations, I think was a pretty good idea. That made it easier for us to say that, reducing our request by, a fair amount was palatable.
One other thing, I think the past several years we've established the protocol that if the cherry sheet numbers change, that money does get passed through. If this $100,000 piece in school choice does get passed in our favor to the budget,
Right.
do we have a handshake agreement that we would be able to
Yep.
have that money come to us also?
We'll definitely we told them that we would expect to have that discussion.
I think one thing I need to point out is, we all know that we level fund our Chapter 70 from year to year, and prior to the Student Opportunity Act, we would typically, if we received more money, we would go back and ask for that money. Things though have changed with the Student Opportunity Act. Those funds, the extra funds that we may receive, are actually targeted funds for an SOA plan. It's the first time that we've ever had this in the state. So when Beth presented the plan this evening, it's dependent on a certain amount of money, and we really don't even know what that total is. We're thinking around anywhere from $40,000 to $47,000. So our plan is tailored to suit that amount of money. So that flexibility that we've had every year has disappeared with the implementation of the Student Opportunity Act.
All right, thank you. Policy Subcommittee?
Let's see, so rolling through tonight, there's another boatload of them for you here. There's 3 for the first reading to rescind, that they're no longer really necessary. They've been actually pulled out of the MASC recommendations at this point. There's the second batch of them is ones that are current and have been reviewed, and the final set in there are the ones that have needed slight updates. I think all of these, let me just check my other email here. All of the updates were relatively minor updates. There was no substantive changes other than like wording changes, simplification in the MASC recommendations on it. The next batch that I'll be bringing, we'll do we're not gonna do policies next week. The second reading will be the final meeting in February here. The April batch, it'll be already April. We'll have another batch of them. There is a couple in that batch that have some substantive differences that Kelly and I have discussed, and we're only bringing some of those changes forward there. And we'll make sure we highlight those where we're not comfortable with some of the language MASC put in some of the policies. So just a heads up as to what's coming there. So tonight is the first reading of the batch of policies here, and I'd appreciate the 3 motions.
There's 3, I only see 2 in my packet. Am I missing something?
The next page.
I only got 2 pages.
No.
All right, that's all right. Steve's got it. All right, go ahead.
It's on the screen.
And just one note before you start. Want to note that policy ADF, which is our wellness policy, I actually went and met with the wellness committee just to talk with them to make sure that they are actually very pleased with the policy they helped draft earlier, and are actually very appreciative that I came by to directly solicit their input on that.
Yep.
Go for it.
So make a motion to accept the first reading to rescind policies JP, KEC, KJA.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None.
I'll make a motion to accept the first reading of the following reviewed policies. AD.
You just say as listed.
You don't want me to read them all?
No.
As listed.
Source board.
It's not that I don't want you to read them all. I don't want anybody to read them all. Don't take it personally. All right,
I
as
like my
listed.
voice.
Yeah. Motion, can I get a second?
Oh, second.
All right.
I
I'm
thought
not
you
gonna
was-
second it.
Okay.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. All right.
Make a motion to accept the first reading of the following modified policies as listed.
Quick one.
Oh, second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thank you, Darryl. Appreciate you doing that work. Any other business? I would like to ask for an executive session for the purposes of contract negotiation.
I make a motion that we adjourn to move into executive session for purpose of contract negotiations with no intention to return to open session.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. This is a roll call vote. Jen?
Aye.
Darryl?
Aye.
Matt?
Aye.
I say aye as well. Thank you. Thank you, LCTV. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you in a couple of weeks.